Hey, Tony, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So a little bit of a background on myself. Um, when I was in college, I had majored in business management economics and had been interested in sort of the business world for a very long time. I grew up in a household where my mom was a tax advisor, my dad was a financial advisor, and so money and business had always been big for me. And then moving into college, I kind of thought that I want to go into some sort of business field, whether it's marketing or business development or something. Sales was the absolute bottom. I had never wanted to go in sales. And the reason it ended up happening, quite honestly, back when I first started about 6 years ago, was that it was the last job offer I got, and it was either this or move back home with my parents. And so I ended up taking it thinking that, okay, you know what, I'll do sales for 6 months, a year, and then I'll move on to something else. Well, fast forward to where I'm at now, I love it. And I absolutely think that I made the best choice that I could have. And I think that it's something that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life. This is what I love doing. I love talking to people. I love selling something that I truly believe is necessary, and can actually improve the way that businesses and people overall can work together. And so that's sort of how I came into sales, and how I've evolved in sales. I've been very, very fortunate to join a company that has executed at the top level, time and time again, has brought in some of the best leaders, and I've learned from some of the best people. I've had some amazing managers to look up to and to learn from, and so it's been quite the journey. It's from where I first started at a company that, quite honestly, I didn't couldn't pronounce the name. I didn't really know what they did, and to the point now where we're a large public company competing with some of the largest names out there.
Yeah. And what was that first year like?
The first year so it was interesting. I started as a BDR, so I started out as an entry level BDR, and it was a combination of getting used to what it's like to sell a very, very technical product. So for your viewers that may not be familiar, Twilio is where I work, and we sell an API effectively. It's a communication platform that allows for you to embed voice, SMS, video chat into software using an API. And so you think about, for example, ZocDoc in the age of COVID, and being able to spin up a telehealth appointment on the fly, or you think about calling into any sort of call center, or to your bank or your insurance company, and having all that context be able to be in front of the screen of an agent. So we provide that back-end technology. So that first year was all about learning what it's like to sell a very technical product, and what it's like to speak to developers, to sell to developers, and generate a story that can resonate with a developer, with an architect, and with an executive, and how to do that for all these different products. And as we've evolved, and as we've added more products, that story's certainly gotten better. But that first year was all about learning, listening to folks that were more experienced than I was, and just trying to begin to understand what kind of salesperson I was going to be.
Because I got to believe, both parents being financial people, kind of cut and dry, even keeled, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I was raised in and not only both my parents in the finance space, but they're also immigrants, and they came to America with almost nothing. And so I was raised to kind of in a I would say a very unique environment, in the sense that everything kind of was bare bones, and it was always like, okay, you make some money, put it away, or everything was kind of taught right to the book, right to the T. And so, yeah, I would agree with you there.
Because that kind of mindset is almost the opposite of sales,
Right.
where you're trying
Yeah.
to create something from nothing,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to
Exactly.
managing what exists.
Yeah. 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 So it was definitely a mind shift in thinking of how to sell,
Yeah.
and how to sell successfully, and to companies of all sizes, of all industries, and especially especially to those in industries that don't really think about innovation or digital communications, and trying to have them, really rethink the way that they are going to survive for the next 20 years.
And, it's certainly great getting into a hot company on the growth curve versus a
Sure.
small
Yes.
or mature
And
company on the down curve.
don't get me wrong. I'm very, very fortunate to have gotten into a very good company, very hot company. I don't think we knew that 5 years ago, 6 years
Yeah.
ago. But yeah, absolutely. Having, the right product, the right people, and the potential is absolutely what has helped me, and I think the company also excel.
And how about like the interpersonal skills? Was that something you had already, or was it something that was outside your comfort zone?
Um, I think I had to work on it. I think I certainly had to work on it. I was a personable kind of individual. Like, I like talking to people. Um, but that's what you do in sales, like, 24/7.
Right.
And that's kind of, you have to get much better at that and get much more comfortable at that. And so I also had to get more comfortable with it, knowing that I have to walk into a room where folks that have 30 years experience, and they are much more, they are much more knowledgeable in this space. And I have to kind of get to par where they're at and have them trust me, establish this relationship. And so it was a work in progress, and absolutely still is a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think I started to hit my stride specifically within the enterprise, I would say, towards the end of 2019, like in terms of how to talk to these folks, and begin to build that relationship. And then the whole world changed, and we had to kind of figure out how to do this all over again over Zoom.
Right. And how did you pick up that technology fast enough? Because it's full of acronyms.
Yeah.
Everyone's got strong feelings about it. There's lots of keywords.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's a lot of listening. It's just going. So, I remember my first year, and back then the office was still small enough to the point where you could walk over to the other side of the office where all the product folks sat, and your product managers, and you could just pull them into a room for a half hour, and you say, hey, tell me about this product, and just, that's it. Just sit back and listen. Let them diagram, let them do all these things, let them throw out all these keywords. And most of it's going to sound like a different language. Yeah. But as you kind of look at it, and you write things down, and you look over your notes, and you record these sessions, and you go back, you go back into it, it becomes something that is more natural to you. I can't say that I'm at the same level as a developer. I cannot code. But I think that I can speak to a developer and have them understand, and we can kind of talk the same language now. So yeah, it is difficult, especially when you're selling, a platform. I'm selling the art of the possible. I'm not selling something in a box, and it can only do a specific set of things. So it's certainly a different type of conversation to be had.
That's it, because a lot of people get intimidated if they don't have a technical background or experience.
Yeah.
And, because I made a huge shift into like security, and it was a real niche of security.
Yeah.
There was nothing on YouTube, very little on the internet at the time.
Sure.
So did exactly what you did, recorded the CEO giving the presentation.
Yep.
I must have listened to that thing 100 times.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are experts in this space, right? And you just have to listen to them. You have to defer a lot of your training and your knowledge to them. And it does take a lot of practice. It's just repetitions and repetition, and eventually you'll get better at it, but you're never going to be the best. Like, I think that's what continues to drive me and motivate me, is that I'm never going to be the best. I can always continue to get better.
And when did you feel at home in sales? When did you just say, like, this is not just a job, this is something I really like to do?
Probably like 2, maybe 3 years into the job, after I had the ability to kind of talk to businesses and sell to businesses from the very small 2-person startup up to some of the largest companies in the world, and have different types of conversations and pitch different solutions. And I really felt like coming into my own, like I really like this and I really enjoy doing this. So it took some time for sure. And it's like I continue to go back to this. It will always be a work in progress. I will always continue to hone my craft, and I will assume that as I continue to do that, I will like sales more and more.
And what's the hardest part of selling something like where you become part of their product essentially?
Yeah. The hardest part, quite honestly, is the question that I get most often is, can you do this? And the answer 99% of the time is yes, but you have to build it. And so generally when you're selling a something out of the box software, the answer is cut and dry. Yes, the software can do this. No, it can't do that. Here, I can show you a demo of how to do what you just asked for. For me, selling a platform, I have no demo to show you. I can show you what other people have built, right, and I can show you what's been out there, but you're going to have to build this from the ground up, and you can do whatever you want. That's the beauty of software, and that's the beauty of developers and of an API. Whatever you ask for, more likely than not, it can be built.
Yeah, it's very similar to some stuff I've done. And so they're doing it somehow today, right?
What do you mean?
When you're selling, they're accomplishing the objective that they could with you. Is it better to go with you, or are you dealing with green fields where they're not doing it today?
Both. So the ultimate value prop that that Twilio has, but I think this can also extend to any sort of platform or API that you'd sell, is the whole concept of owning your roadmap. A lot of companies who use other vendors for a solution that we sell, or companies who don't have a solution are trying to get into this space or trying to reimagine it, they are generally going to be hamstrung by whatever that vendor has built for them or whatever is available in the box. And if they want to change something for their end user, or if their customer has come to them and has requested a certain feature, they then have to go back to their vendor and say, hey, can you do this? The fundamental shift and the fundamental difference here is there's no vendor to go back to. It's you as the company who's serving your customer can decide what you want to do, and you have to build it. So the whole concept of owning your roadmap and being able to have a closer connection to your customer is a bit of a different mentality. It's not what used to be 10, even 5 years ago. The power of the developer has exponentially increased, and it's not stopping.
Yeah. And how do you run into they like it technically? You go through this proof of concept, they ask for a proposal, and then it dies where they don't have
all the time. What I often say, and this is especially true in enterprise, and this is probably going to be true for the majority of your folks that are in enterprise sales, is the value prop of what you sell could be quite easy to get to. Like you could see the value of the solution, but the hardest part of the job is, number one, getting the actual resources to build it, and number two is all the compliance and all the legal and the security and the data protection and all of that. When we're operating in such a new space and such a new field, having your customers, legal folks, security folks, being able to understand what it is that we're trying to do here, that is the much larger hurdle to get over. But once we do that, then we're kind of off to the races.
So you have a lot of, what I call naysayers or legacy people who don't
Oh,
real,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, people who have made their careers on some of these legacy technologies. People
Yeah.
who, they're going to retire in 5 years, and why would they drastically shift something now when they've been so successful for the last 30 years? It happens all the time, especially in financial services and healthcare and some of the more legacy industries, as I'll say.
And how do you navigate that or predict whether that's going to be a waste of time or not, or slow it down to the point where it's less valuable to you compared to the other options you could spend your time on?
Yeah, it's hard to predict for sure. I mean, before I go into any meeting, I'll obviously do my research on who it is that I'm talking to. I'll look at their LinkedIn's. I'll look at maybe articles they've published or blog posts that they've published, and try to get a sense of what the common themes are and what they want to hear or what's going to resonate with them. Um, when you see someone who has been in has made their career, like I said, on a legacy technology, something that you're trying to unseat, it's going to be difficult, and it's hard to predict how that meeting is going to go. But at that point, I kind of have to rely on the skills that I have, gained in the ever since I started, and trying to help people see the value in what it is that I'm selling, and start to create that mind shift. And even if I'm meeting with 5 people and 4 say absolutely not, that one person that says yes, well, I have just started a potential relationship with a champion, and I'm going to continue to coach that champion to start flipping those other 4. That's all it really takes. Just to start just a very, very little bit, one person to believe in you, and then from there you can kind of begin to snowball into a larger relationship.
And I got to believe it's the type of sale where it's not really the money, it's the change that they have to go through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the money, honestly, it's what we're proposing here can save these companies
Right.
a
Yeah.
lot of money, a lot of money. I mean, you're shifting to a very a cloud-based technology that costs a lot less. You don't have to maintain servers. You don't have to maintain specialized staff that can only do one specific thing. A lot of cost savings, but there's also a lot of change. The change is the hardest part to get over. And it is my prediction that eventually everyone in the Fortune 2000 or in the Fortune 500 Global 2000 will get there. It's a matter of time, not a matter of if.
Yeah, because it's much more like when the cloud first started.
Yeah. Yeah.
People were scared to death to even put their email server up on the
Yep.
cloud.
Yep. Exactly. And now you see more and more of that shifting, and you're seeing now the effects of customers choosing to go to companies where their experiences is something that they enjoy. It's no longer about the product that you offer, but also about the experience that you offer, and how easy it is for me as an end customer to deal with this company that I'm buying from. And that's what I'm trying to sell, is this ultimate experience that you're then going to create for your customer.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've been exposed to a lot of great salespeople and a lot of okay salespeople. What do you see as kind of the distinctions?
Um, I think number one, it's the tenacity. It's the continued drive to become better and continued drive to learn and succeed. Number two, it's the people who have a process and the people who know exactly what it takes to succeed. Some of that may be, some of them may be very data driven, and they know exactly, how they get their quota. They know exactly how to build their pipeline, and they have all these different formulas and spreadsheets, and they know how to get there. Others, it may be who are you going to talk to from marketing or from product, and be able to understand how are you going to get to your quota. So I think it's the tenacity, the motivation, as well as the process. And the people that I've seen, and this is, I think, very true of pretty much every leader at Twilio that I've had the opportunity to work with, they embody those characteristics. And that's what I'm trying to, live up to and try to get to one day.
And what have you learned most? Because I'm sure you've run into a lot of places where it makes economic sense, technical sense, but it's not going to happen in your
Yeah.
lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Or at least in your window of quota.
So you're talking specifically when trying to sell to a customer or some roadblocks. Yeah. The roadblocks really come down to I guess I'll call it the paperwork change, right? So like I alluded to earlier, the shift to something that Twilio sells is rather simple, right? If you get a developer, even a mid-tier developer, they can build something real quick. But it's all about how are you going to create a mind shift change within that organization to start thinking differently, to start seeing the value in what that developer is going to build and how they're ultimately going to get closer to the customer. You'd be surprised how many times I ask one of my customers, what do their customers care about? And they say, I don't really know. They don't talk to their customers on a day-to-day basis. Once that mind shift happens and they start to actually think about what they're building and how it benefits their end customer, patient, consumer, whatever it may be, then it becomes a much quicker time to value and a much quicker sale, really.
So when do you get involved with the line of business people? You got the technical people who are building the app on top of your product.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
But the line of business people probably have the power, politically at least, and maybe even economically, and to create urgency to have the company change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the technical piece is just one of many factors. Once I get the technical win, that's great. But I'm only 20% of the way there. Yeah.
Everybody thinks they're 80% there.
No, not at all. And what I've learned is, especially in the last couple of years, is the technical win might oftentimes be the easiest win to get, and that's great. But your work has just started. So getting the business people engaged is equally, if not more important, and getting executive alignment is equally, if not more important, right? So I've begun to have this process that I've implemented where I compartmentalize into the different wins that I need to get, and all of those are going at the same time in parallel. And if I get one first, great, we'll keep it there. Let's get everything else to the point where we can get a contract signed. A contract's not going to be signed, and I'm not actually going to get a closed one deal without having every single person bought in and every single person knowing what exactly it is that we're doing here. And while that process may be lengthy and while that process may be difficult, it's ultimately going to help you not just get that first deal, but get that second and fifth and 10th deal. And that's ultimately how you're going to get those $1 million, $10 million deals.
Yeah. And how do you become good at that business sale? Because it's completely different than the technical sale.
Yeah. I think it's so much like on the technical sale, spending time with your product managers, understanding the product that you're selling. You do the same thing with your lawyers. You do the same thing with your security people. You do the same thing with your own executives. You want to understand how they think, what they care about, and how they've architected everything. And then you relay that to your customer. You then say, okay, I know how we view our legal documents, our terms and conditions, our MSA. Here are the main sticking points, because I've been through this so many times. I know exactly what you are going to see here, and let me explain to you what our point of view is, so that I can kind of streamline this process and not take up resources from my legal team. Same thing happens with security. Same thing happens with the executives. So spending time with every single component of your own organization, your own supporting team, to understand what they think is success, and then kind of relaying that to your customer and finding every single stakeholder that you can align to them, right? So you as an account executive, you're the quarterback of that opportunity and the account, and your job is done, or you got your first win when you've created that route and you've understood how to best get down the field, and you've understood everything that has to align, right? So there's a lot of components to it, and I think it's just you taking the time to learn and listen, and ultimately repetitions, and just kind of get better at it over time.
And have there been any major epiphanies when you got into enterprise on the enterprise side, as far as how to use your time, how to assure a win versus no decision?
Yeah. Yes. The the whole enterprise deal cycle. I think that has been and continues to be one of the biggest surprises to me, coming from selling an SMB.
Yeah.
An SMB, you're talking to the CEO of a 100-person company, and you're talking to the guy or girl who makes the decisions. Like, you're right there at the top. Here, in a company that's 50,000 people big, there are 17 business units, all siloed, no one talking to one another, all using different technologies. And it's your job to understand what their procurement process is, how they get through legal cycles, legal negotiations, what they care about from a privacy standpoint, and you start that from the very first conversation.
Yeah.
And even before you get a technical win, you have to understand, how am I going to get the legal win? Because if I'm not getting the legal win, I'm wasting my time here.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to get eyes from their lawyers or from their security folks to assess our platform, make sure it clears their procurement policies, I'm wasting my time here. And so the biggest thing I've learned is start the process early and often, and continue to ask and revalidate, and ask and revalidate every single chance you get.
Yeah. And how long did it take to learn that? Was that something you learned from a loss? Was that somebody told you? It's like, look, make sure you do this, and you're like,
No, I think I didn't learn it from a lot. I learned it from just the fact that I realized I wasn't going to be able to get any wins if I didn't do that.
They wait until it's stuck in legal, or some security guy raises his hands and does it adhere to this standard or that standard, or
yeah. I was, before joining the enterprise, before jumping into an enterprise sales role, I had always heard about this. I'd always heard, oh, the MSA discussion is very, very difficult. The BA discussion, whatever it might be, is very difficult. And I always thought, okay, yeah, sure. But I've done this many times. I've gotten many close won deals here. It can't be that different, right? No, it's very different. And you begin to realize that early, because, I think my very first experience of an enterprise deal was with a prominent hospital in the Northeast, and we had gotten the technical win within 2 weeks. It was very awesome. Got within 2 weeks, and then the legal folks came in and they said, "Listen, if you can't sign this document, we're not moving forward. I don't care how great of a solution you have. We're not moving forward without this document." And that's when it clicked to me, is like, okay, they care about this so much more, and the process here is so much more well defined. That you just have to get that down if you ever want to get a win. And so, you're going to have a couple of swings and misses when you start out, not just in enterprise, but also in a new company. It's what you do with those. It's how you take those, and what you learn from them, and how you iterate on your own process as what's going to define how successful you're going to be.
Cool.
That's what I found.
Yeah, great. Hey, Tony, appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to talk. Happy to talk and learn. Like I said, sales is a never-ending learning process, and I would always love to swap notes with people, talk to people, and continue to hone my own processes, and hopefully share some good tidbits of my own to others.